For Learning Unit 1, we're going to look at the basics of microbiology, and we're also going to look at some specific methods of disease transmission. Now, what I'm hoping is that part of this section, at least the beginning of Learning Unit 1, is going to be a review for you. So at least part or some of it is hopefully information that you've encountered in other courses, and you can kind of look at that and be like, oh yeah, I remember that, and kind of build on it and keep moving along. But what we're going to go over is it's going to be the cellular components. We're going to have a review of the cell components. Growth patterns, growth conditions. One important thing that we're going to look at is the exponential or the logarithmic growth of bacteria. So that bacterial growth curve is going to be something that's going to be important for this unit. We're going to look at, like I said, conditions that are required for growth of microbes. And then we're going to dive into looking at specific microbes. We're looking at foodborne pathogens, specific ones. And those are in kind of 4 different categories. Our largest category is going to be that of the bacteria. And those are going to be our most common foodborne pathogens. But we're going to look at our bacteria, which is also called our prokaryotes. And those are going to be our simple guys. They're going to be unicellular. And our bacteria are going to be grouped in either gram-positive bacteria or gram-negative bacteria. And so that's something that you're going to be reading about in the unit. So we're going to visit gram-positive bacteria that are foodborne pathogens, and also gram-negative bacteria that are foodborne pathogens. And with all of these, we're going to be looking at how the food's contaminated, what kind of food's contaminated, how it can be prevented, and also the illness, how the illness itself works, and what the person who gets infected, or if they have a foodborne intoxication, what are the symptoms that they show. And again, just how these things can be prevented as a whole. So we're going to start off with bacteria, which are going to be our prokaryotes. And then we're going to look at our eukaryotes. Eukaryotes are more complex than prokaryotes. They're going to be your multicellular organisms. And for the purposes of this, we're going to be looking at mostly parasites, or what we'll be looking at with our eukaryotes. So we're going to kind of look at the life cycle of those and how they're transmitted. Then we're going to move on to viruses. Your viruses are unique because they are, technically they're not living organisms. They are pieces of nucleic acid that are wrapped in a protein coat. So they're different. They're different in their life cycle. They're different in how they have to get into a host in order to essentially hijack those host cells to keep replicating themselves. So we're going to look at viruses and see how those are a little bit different, and how those can affect food safety. And then we're going to finish off with prions. And prions are very unique in that they also are not living. And they're proteins. They're misshapen proteins, and they can send messages to other proteins to make them also be misshapen, and they can cause a lot of havoc based on that. And you'll learn later on in this module about the bovine spongiform encephalopathy, which is also our mad cow disease, and that's caused by a prion. That's a prion disease. So we're going to be looking at these groups of foodborne pathogens, and what we really want to be concerned about, we want to be concerned about being able to put them in the proper group, and knowing the characteristics of those microbes, knowing kind of their growth characteristics, what kind of foods they're going to want to grow in, how they can contaminate the foods, how that can be prevented. And then if a person does eat the contaminated foods, how the illness will present itself. So those are kind of the big picture things that we're going to be looking at. Now for Learning Unit 1, you're going to have 4 assignments. And there's also going to be a test and a discussion post. Now your test for Unit 1, and this is going to be how your test for all of the units are set up, but your test is going to be in 2 parts. The first part's going to be like more of a multiple choice true-false type setup, and then the second part is going to be more of the short answer part. And both of those will be timed. Once you start them, you have to complete them. So once you click begin on that test, you got to finish it. It's timed, and you've got to finish it. Now for regular written weekly assignments, for those, you have a little bit more flexibility to be able to save your work and to go back in and complete them and submit them by the due date. So and also there'll be a discussion assignment. And the discussion assignment and the test will become available at the same time. All that information is on your due dates link that you can look at and get all that from. And then for your discussion post, you're going to respond to my initial post, and then you're also going to respond to 2 other classmates. So you'll have at minimum 3 posts total on the discussion board. So for Learning Unit 1, we're going to kick that off with the basics of microbiology. So go ahead and get started on that. If you have any questions, if you have any concerns, please don't hesitate to let me know. Thanks so much.